Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 15th chapter, text number 39. Mathurayam tatha vajram Shurasena patin tataha Prajapatyam nirupyeshtim Agni napibadishwaraha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Then he posted Vajra, the son of Aniruddha, grandson of Lord Krishna, at Mathura as the king of Shurasena. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudhishthira performed a Prajapatya sacrifice and placed in himself the fire for quitting household life. Quote by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Yudhishthira, after placing Maharaj Parikshit on the imperial throne of Hastinapura and after posting Vajra, the great grandson of Lord Krishna, as the king of Mathura, accepted the renounced order of life. The system of 4 orders of life and 4 castes in terms of quality and work, known as Varnasrama Dharma, is the beginning of real human life. And Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a protector of this system of human activities, timely retired from active life as a sannyasi, handing over the charge of the administration to a trained prince, Maharaj Parikshit. The scientific system of Varnasrama Dharma divides the human life into 4 divisions of occupation and 4 orders of life. The 4 orders of life as Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasi are to be followed by all, irrespective of the occupational division. Modern politicians do not wish to retire from active life, even if they are old enough, but Yudhishthir Maharaj, as an ideal king, voluntarily retired from active administrative life to prepare himself for the next life. Everyone's life must be so arranged that the last stage of life, say at least the last 15 to 20 years prior to death, can be absolutely devoted to the devotional service of the Lord to attain the highest perfection of life. It is really foolishness to engage oneself all the days of one's life in material enjoyment and fruitive activities, because as long as the mind remains absorbed in fruitive work for material enjoyment, there is no chance of getting out from conditioned life or material bondage. No one should follow the suicidal policy of neglecting one's supreme task of attaining the highest perfection of life, namely going back home, back to Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So all of us know about the battle of Kurukshetra war, Mahabharata. Now, so many people have done serials, movies, and there are so many scriptures describing the very elaborate war which happened for 18 days, where so many soldiers were killed. And then King Yudhishthira was established as the emperor of this entire world. So why this elaborate war happened? Such a ghastly warfare, killing so many men. That is to establish a qualified pure devotee like Yudhishthira Maharaj, so that he will rule people in a proper way and people will be progressing spiritually as well as materially. Not just they advance materially in material civilization, but they advance also spiritually. So after that particular war happened, Pandavas were, quite satisfied. They got their kingdom, because prior to the war, they were even requesting Duryodhana to give even 5 villages. But Duryodhana was so adamant that he said, not even a place which a needle, tip of the needle can hold. That kind of, adamance he showed. So then war was inevitable. Krishna also supported. Actually, Krishna was the director of this entire warfare. He planned each and everything, but of course he empowered different people, and ultimately he made sure that victory is on Pandava's side. After Krishna accomplishes his task by enthroning Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Pandavas, they were ruling Hastinapur, Indraprastha, all these provinces, and Krishna was about to leave back to his own kingdom, Dwarka. So that is the time when Kunti Maharani offers very beautiful, heartfelt prayers requesting Krishna not to go away from them, so that they can have darshan of the Lord constantly, and they converse, they relate with the Lord. So then Krishna agrees to her prayers for some time, and after that finally he goes back to his own kingdom, Dwarka. And it has been almost like 36 years that after the battle of Kurukshetra, and there was no news from Krishna. What is the next task for Pandavas? Yudhishthira Maharaj. So Yudhishthira Maharaj sends Arjuna to Dwarka to ask what is the next task. So now Arjuna also went, and it was quite some time he didn't come back, he didn't return. There was no news of Arjuna either. So then all of a sudden bad omens start manifesting. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj thinks that, okay, Krishna must have left this planet Earth and gone away, because his mission was already accomplished, killing all the unnecessary Kshatriyas and enthroning Yudhishthira Maharaj, a pure devotee. And then as exactly guessed by Yudhishthira Maharaj, Arjuna returns back to Hastinapur, but he is completely sorrow, he is full of moroseness, he is unable to even speak. So then Yudhishthira Maharaj, we see in the previous chapter, in this chapter, a lot of questions he asks, what happened, whether Krishna Balarama are fine, Yadava dynasty, the members are fine. Finally he realized that Krishna has left the planet. And then on the way, he couldn't even protect Krishna's queens. So some common men, so-called common men, they actually steal the queens of Krishna. And that's how Arjuna laments. The same Gandiva bow, who was able to conquer even Lord Shiva, all the demigods, great devatas like Indra, fire god, everybody. The same Gandiva is there, but there is no strength in that, because Krishna has left the planet, Krishna has gone back. And then by hearing this, everybody becomes very sad. Yudhishthira Maharaj also, finally, the Pandavas decide that it is time to now retire. So that is why this chapter is entitled, The Pandavas Retire Timely. So timely because they had still time. They didn't die. Isn't it? Pandavas were still ruling. They were very powerful. They were healthy. They were capable. Still, voluntarily, they decided to give up this material world and then completely devote time and energy for spiritual life. So then in the previous verse we saw how Yudhishthira Maharaj enthrones Parikshit Maharaj, who was another great soul, equally qualified like Yudhishthira Maharaj, and such a great qualified person. You see Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, they have a conversation. Srimad Bhagavatam is there because of the conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. And then in today's verse, we see that Mathurayam tata vajram shurasena patim tataha. Yudhishthira Maharaj not only enthrones Parikshit Maharaj in Hastinapur, he also enthrones Vajra. And who is Vajra? Vajra is the great grandson of Lord Krishna. So Vajra's father was Aniruddha. So Aniruddha's father was Pradyumna. Pradyumna's father was Lord Shri Krishna himself. Krishna and Rukmini's first son is Pradyumna. So that way Vajra happens to be the great grandson of Lord Krishna. And Shurasena Patin Tataha. Mathura was called as Shurasena Pati. So basically the province which included Mathura was ruled by a very famous king known as Shurasena. So and Prajapatyam Nirupyashtim Agnin Apibad Ishwaraha. So after doing these two tasks, Yudhishthira Maharaj in next future verses we will see how he completely renounces his kingdom and he goes to the Himalayas for austerities and tapasya. So the concept here, the presented in these great pages of the timeless wisdom Srimad Bhagavatam is how responsible the kings were, how responsible were the leaders who would rule over their subjects, very, very responsibly. So we saw it's not that, okay, now I have ruled enough, I have enjoyed sufficiently, now what happens next to my generation, what happens next to my subjects who were dependent upon me after I go away, I am least bothered. That is not the consciousness of a responsible king like Yudhishthira Maharaj, who was a very pure devotee of the Lord. And pure devotee by default, he possesses all the good qualities. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavate kunchana sarvair gunayastatra samasate suraha. So all the good qualities that are seen in the demigods are to be seen in a pure Vaishnava. So he is actually as much as one is concerned about one's own self, he is rather more concerned about his dependents, his subjects. That is why it is said that in the Vedic scriptures, Pita na sasyad, Janani na sasyad. Na mochayata yat samupeta mrityu. So there is a long list. One should not become so and so, one should not become father, one should not become mother, one should not become a guru, until unless na mochayet yat samupeta mrityu, unless one can deliver the dependents from the cycle of birth and death. That means one can avoid liberation, guide them properly. So we see that it's very, very responsible position, very, very responsible task, becoming a king, becoming a leader, becoming an emperor. But on the other hand, we see so many times in history, there were so many rulers, ruthless rulers and kings who just, wanted to conquer more and more, more and more. There is no limit for their greed. No matter, what came in their way, they just actually, tried to get over them, kill them, finish them by all means, and then achieve their personal sense gratification. Prabhupada narrates very interesting one pastime, one story connected to Alexander the Great, so-called the Great, Alexander. So actually he comes across a thief once in Alexander's life, because Alexander was constantly conquering country after country, different empires. And then this Alexander happens to meet a person. He arrests one thief, and he was about to award him punishment. He was about to hang him. So then, just before this verdict was about to be pronounced, this thief makes a request. My dear king, you are no better than me. You are not different from me. I am a small thief. You are a big thief. Because somehow or other you have accumulated strength. You have great army, huge army. Forcefully you are actually stealing. It is stealing, isn't it? Without one's consent, taking away somebody's possession. It is actually stealing. So you are forcefully conquering kingdoms there, you are looting everything, you are destroying things, and you are a big thief. So what is the difference between me and you? That means if I punished, you are also supposed to be punished, he says. And then Alexander, actually he gets convinced, yes, it's true. That what he is saying, there is no falsity in that, that is truth. So then he releases that, thief. So similarly, in some other place elsewhere it is said, what were Alexander's 3 great wishes, last wishes of Alexander? Because such a basic thing, even a small negligent person like thief could educate a great emperor. That means the great emperor was so much ignorant of the even facts, such basic facts, that taking away somebody's property is actually sinful. So and then Alexander's 3 great wishes were, it's popularly known that first thing is, after I pass away, that is third one. What is first one? No, best of the doctors should carry my coffin. Yes, we'll come back to that second one. So first one, why did he say this? First one he said because he realized at that point in time when he was about to die, he never retired timely from his life. He retired untimely. Actually he was going on the way back from India, and then on the way, there are different versions. He said that, somebody on the way he died, just after reaching his, motherland he died. So whatever it is, but he never had time to think of spiritual life. All throughout his life he fought wars, and then finally, such simple people, they could make him realize that this material life is not all in all. There is something far beyond this material existence. So, but it was too late for him. Anyways, the first wish was, he said, because best of the doctors should carry my dead body, coffin, because no matter what facilities you have, no matter how best doctors you have, nobody can protect one once death is haunted. So when death attacks anybody, there is no method, there is no way to get out of it. That is why it is said that in this material world, everything is indefinite. You don't know what is going to happen next. But one thing is for sure. What is that? As sure as death. So everybody has to give up this present material body. That is for sure. Either sooner, today, tomorrow, after 100 years, or later. So that is the fact. So then second wish, his last wish was, he said whatever he accumulated, everything has to be thrown away on the ground on the way to his graveyard. I'm sure definitely they wouldn't have done that, because so much of wealth he had. At least to show his words, to follow his words, to some extent they would have done. So it means that whatever we have earned in this material life, material world, When we die, we have to leave it here itself. We cannot take it back with us to the next world or whatever spiritual world, next body. So whatever we do is only limited to this material body. Until unless we are alive in this body, we can enjoy. But what about after that? It's not possible to carry. So he wanted to teach that. And then third wish was, both the hands should be kept open along with the grave, this coffin, so that people will realize that empty-handed we had come and we are going empty-handed. So what remains with us is what all actions, what all activities we have done. Only those reactions that carry with us with our subtle body, mind, body and intelligence. So that is the only thing that we carry with us. So anyways, he never appointed any future successful emperor, qualified person. And then how this empire actually was lost and people quarreled among themselves. So different people claimed among themselves, and then entire thing was lost. But whereas we see the great family heritage of Pandavas, Yudhishthira Maharaj, Arjuna, actually they were very responsible to make sure that this wonderful dynasty continues, because they were pure devotees. And then he appointed Parikshit Maharaj, and then he also appoints Vajranama, because Vajranama is one of the descendants of Lord Krishna himself. So that is why he made sure that he is also be properly enthroned, and then make sure that the dynasty, the family lineage of Krishna also continues. Otherwise we may wonder why Parikshit Maharaj bothered about enthroning Vajranama. Yudhishthira Maharaj, he already enthroned Parikshit Maharaj in Hastinapur, and then he would have just walked away. But no, he made sure that he enthroned Vajra also. No, because Vajra also was a very qualified person. He cannot be an ordinary soul. And he happened to be the great grandson of Krishna. So now in the Shastras it is mentioned, Bhagavatam class, multiple places, Prabhupada also recollects, and in Mahabharata it comes, that the Kuru dynasty and Yadu dynasty were intimately connected in many ways. By familial relationships, marriage took place between their families. So one instance Prabhupada quotes is of Kunti Maharani. Who was Kunti Maharani? Mother of Pandavas, Yudhishthira Maharaj. So that's why Kaunteya is referred to Arjuna. Many times Krishna addresses in Bhagavad Gita Kaunteya or Pritha. So Kunti actually happened to be the daughter of Shurasena. The Shurasena also, Shurasena Patim Tataha, today's verse also we see, was a very qualified king. Who was father of Shurasena? Shurasena. So we have heard of Kartyavira Arjuna, isn't it? In Parshurama, Lord Parshurama, that battle. And then Kartyavira Arjuna happens to be the emperor of the whole planet. And he was a ruthless king, just like any other Kshatriya king. So Lord Parshurama had to advent and kill him, and then out of the 1,000 sons of Kartavirya Arjuna, only 5 sons remained, and one of the sons was this Shurasena. So Shurasena was actually, and then these 5 sons divided the entire earth. Shurasena was given a place surrounding Mathura, and one place also was named as Shurasena after him. So he was ruling that province of the part of the earth. And then we have heard of King Chitraketu also. He is actually also belonging to the same family tradition. So Krishna tells to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita also, while he is explaining divine and demonic qualities, my dear Arjuna, please don't worry, you are possessing divine qualities, because your family heritage is very great. From Kunti's side also it's great, and from Pandu's side also it is very great. So you are possessing Daivi Prakriti, Daivi Gunas, the qualities, is what it says. So it is very important that the family tradition of Vajranaba also is understood, the family heritage. So that is about Kunti Maharani's father was Shurasena. And then Shurasena, he was a Kshatriya. Kshatriyas used to marry many wives multiple times. And then he had married one girl coming from business family, Vaishya girl. And then he had a son named Nanda. He had a son named Nanda Maharaj. So actually Lord Shri Krishna accepted Vasudeva and Devaki as their parents, so he took birth from them, and then he actually grew up. The foster parents were Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, and again Nanda Baba married Yashoda Maya, and then actually they were considered as belonging to Vaishya families, whereas Vasudeva and Devaki, they continued to be in the Kshatriya families. So if you see, in that way, Kunti Maharani happened to be the aunt of Lord Shri Krishna, because Vasudeva and Kunti, they were siblings, brother and sister. So Krishna's aunt was Kunti and father was Vasudeva. Similarly, Nanda Maharaj was also actually son of Shurasena. So then Krishna also explains in Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter that Krishi Goraksha Vanijyam Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam. So what are the duties of a Vaishya family, business community? The most important item is Goraksha, Krishi Raksha and Goraksha. And then Vanijya is secondary, business of course. So that is why Krishna and Balaram, they represented. So Balaram, what is Ayudha of Balaram? Plow. So that is used for tilling in the agriculture. So Balaram represents Krishi Raksha. He is a protector of agriculture. And Goraksha is Krishna. That's why Krishna's another name is Govinda. We call him Gopala. So actually he is very, very dear to the cows. Cows are also very dear to him. So he has flute with him. He makes sure that cows are happy, and he tends them. So Krishna is the tender of cows, Goraksha, and Krishi Raksha by Balaram. So that is one of the relationships why it is recollected Prabhupada's elsewhere. And another relationship was between the families was Subhadra. Subhadra was coming from which family tradition? She is also daughter of Vasudeva. So that's why sisters. Krishna, Rukmini, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. So that Subhadra Devi happens to be the sister of Krishna. So she married Arjuna, and Arjuna belonged to Kuru dynasty again. So like this, so many very intimate relationships were existing between Kuru family and Yadu family. So that is why it happened, the responsibility of Yudhishthira Maharaj to enthrone one of the very few descendants. They were left, they were alive after this fratricidal war among the Yadu dynasty, to enthrone Vajra as one of the rulers of this planet Earth also. And Vajra happened to be the son of Aniruddha and Usha. So basically we have heard of that pastime Banasura, where Aniruddha fights and then Banasura is killed. So he's the son of Usha and Aniruddha. So Vajra happens to be the grandson of Banasura. Although he was a Asura, but he actually played a part in the Lord's pastime. So then it so happens that after both were enthroned, Parikshit Maharaj and Vajra were enthroned. So after a few days, elsewhere it is mentioned in the Garga Samhita that Parikshit Maharaj visits King Vajranabha. So just to find out, because there were very few relatives left, the Pandavas had left for the Himalayas, and same with the family descendants of Yadu dynasty, almost everybody were killed, and Vajra was there. So it was nearby, Mathura and Hastinapur, suppose Vrindavan, 100+ kilometers. So Parikshit Maharaj goes to ask, about his health and welfare, about his kingdom. And when they meet, Vajra actually was ruling the kingdom, but without any interest, because he was a very small boy of around 10 years of age, and he had gone for Gurukula education. And meanwhile, all these incidents happened in Dwarka, and war broke among the family members. That was the pastime of Krishna. Krishna went back, Krishna Balaram and all the descendants went back to their original abodes. So Vajra had not even seen Lord Krishna face to face. So he was very sad that although I took birth in such a great family, and he is the Supreme Lord himself who had descended, I had not had darshan. So he was very happy that Parikshit Maharaj, he compares, in fact Parikshit Maharaj had darshan of the Lord right in the mother's womb, Uttara's womb. When Brahmastra was released by Ashwatthama, Lord appears there and protects him. So actually they were very great devotees. Parikshit in fact went to thank Vajra, because of your great grandfather Krishna I am existing today. In fact, but in return Vajra recognizes him to be more elevated soul, because right from birth he saw Krishna, and then always Parikshita, the meaning of the word Parikshit means he was examining everybody, that whether he's the same person whom I saw in mother's womb. So he was always meditating on Krishna, so he was a first class pure devotee. So then while they were talking like that, Vajra recollects that no, there are no family members, I don't have memory of Krishna seeing also. So now then Parikshit Maharaj arranges for sage Shandilya Muni to come and explain about the Braj, Mathura, Nandagaon, Barsana, all this Gokul, all the places of Braj. And then Vajra decides to get Vishwakarma, and then he is the architect of the demigods, and he carves 8 prominent deities of Krishna. So let's hear this particular paragraph which Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes. The Garga Samhita tells us that having located these sites, Vajra had Vishwakarma, architect of the demigods, carve the following 8 deities. In Mathura, Dirgha Vishnu, so he gets carved Dirgha Vishnu, the deity's name is Keshava. And in Vrindavan, Govinda Dev. So Govindaji originally, we have seen in Vrindavan. So, but most of the deities, they were shifted to Jaipur, Karoli, today's Jaipur, that place, because the Mughal rulers, they were attacking. So then that time they were shifted, and the Pratibhu Murti were installed. And Govinda Dev in Govardhan. In Govardhan also one Govinda Dev. Hari Dev in Gokul, and Baladev. So Baladev deity also we have seen in Gokul, it is there. So these were the first 4. And additionally he carved 2 Nathas. So what is the first Natha? That is Srinath Ji, originally at Govardhan. So we all know about that pastime of Srila Madhavendra Puri, how because of his pure devotional service, Lord personally comes and offers him milk, and then he steals a pot of sweet rice for him, and then that's how he becomes, from Gopinath he becomes Kheer Chor Gopinath, who stole the kheer for his pure devotee. And then he actually goes to Remuna, that is the place where near Jagannath Puri is still existing. So that is the one deity. And another Natha is Sri Gopinath, Gopinath. So Govinda Dev, Gopinath, and 2 Gopalas known as Madana Gopala. Later on Madan Gopal was named as Madana Mohana. So Govinda, Gopinath, Madana Mohana, and then Sakshi Gopal. Today, the Sakshi Gopal was originally there in Vrindavan. We know that pastime of how Brahmanas, to settle the quarrel of the Brahmanas, he becomes a witness, and all the way from Vrindavan he walks to a place near Puri in Orissa. So that is Sakshi Gopal. So these were the 8 deities. That 8 deities were Keshava, Govinda Deva, Baladeva, Hari Deva, then Gopinath, another that Srinath Ji Gopinath, and then Gopalas. One Gopal is Madan Gopal and Madan Gopal, the Sakshi Gopal. So Vajra had never seen, but based on the descriptions of his mother Uttara and also Uddhava, he actually gets carved these 8 deities. But then Lord's plan was that if there one particular deity comes out exactly like Krishna, then Vajranabha will be satisfied with one deity. But Lord wanted to have more deities to be installed all throughout the country. So somehow Vishwakarma, although he is the architect of the demigods, the deities were not exactly replicating Lord Krishna. So it is said that Govindaji's lotus face resembled Lord Krishna's lotus face exactly. And then Gopinathji's from neck portion to the navel, it resembled exactly like Lord Krishna when he was in Dwaraka. And then Madana Mohana from navel to the tip of his toe, it resembled exactly. So Govinda, Gopinath, Madan Mohana, these 3 deities became very prominent deities. It is said that if somebody has darshan of all these 3 deities, and it is sure that they get love of Krishna, because it's exactly like seeing the complete form of Krishna. So that was the thing. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out these 3 deities also, philosophically also they prove that Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. So these 3 deities help us to know the process of Bhakti Yoga, and then how to get connected with them, and then ultimately get the Prayojana, the result of Bhakti Yoga, that is love of God, Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recollects in Chaitanya Charitamrita, E teen Thakura Gaudiya ke Kariya Chena Atmasat, E tinera Charana Vandontine Moranatha. These three deities, Madan Mohana, Govinda and Gopinath, have absorbed the heart and soul of all Gaudiya Vaishnavas. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. So one of the favorite Vaishnava songs of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was this: Hari Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudana Giridhari Gopinath Madan Mohana. So Gopinath, Govinda, Madan Mohana actually were very favorite of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says that, and he sends the Goswamis, especially Rupa and Sanatana, to Vrindavan to excavate. Again, after Vajranabha, because Vajranabha happened to be in the beginning of Kali Yuga. And although he had installed great temples and deities, everything set up, but again as Kali Yuga progressed, the systems got collapsed. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again sent the Goswamis. He excavated all the lost places of Vrindavan and the Braj area, and that's how we have today all these facilities. So basically it was Vajranabha's intense desire to have Krishna's manifestation everywhere. So that is the qualification of a person. So although he was a Kshatriya, although he was actually ruling as a king, but what was his primary attraction? The primary attraction, the qualification was attachment to the Supreme Lord. That is why Prabhupada mentions in today's purport also that the system of 4 orders of life and 4 castes in terms of quality and work, known as Varnasrama Dharma, is the beginning of real human life. So it is actually beginning of human life. If somebody is not even following this Varnasrama system, that means they are not even considered as human beings. They are not even civilized. Dharmena hina pashubi samana. If somebody is not following, they are not part of this Varnasrama system, then he is actually considered as an animal. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as the protector of this system of human activities, timely retired from active life as a sannyasi. So this Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnya maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashaha. So based on my guna and nature and quality of work, what I am engaged in, these 4 varnas and ashramas are created. So now based on guna is okay. Now somebody may be engaged as a Brahmana, somebody as a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So this is optional. Whatever suits him, he gets engaged. But this ashrama of Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, this everyone must follow, is what Prabhupada is mentioning. The scientific system of Varnasrama Dharma divides the human life into 4 divisions of occupation and 4 orders of life. The 4 orders of life as Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi are to be followed by all, irrespective of the occupational division. So no matter what occupation one is engaged in, but one has to follow these 4 ashramas. Otherwise, it's like following only material path, not following any spiritual path. So gradually when we follow this Varnasrama system, it's like we have, suppose somebody may be engaged as a doctor, somebody may be engaged as a engineer. So that is his profession. But finally, that is not primary. That is actually secondary. The primary is what activities we do for our spirit's benefit, spirit soul's benefit. So just like, great kings that, he realized at the fag end of his life that, he did not do anything for his spirit soul, or everything, whatever he did for his material body was about to collapse and, get mixed with the earth. So then what we take with us is only the activities that we have done. That activities are categorized as spiritual activities. So it is said everybody should follow these varnas. In the end, it is said that everybody should take sannyas. So now that sannyas, the ultimate goal of entire varnashrama system is sannyas. So now what is exactly sannyas? Krishna is explaining Bhagavad Gita in the very first verse of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Sankhya Yoga. It said, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi sa yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha. So who is the real sannyasi? What is the actual definition of a sannyasi? Definition of sannyasi is anashrita karma phala. Now everybody has to engage in some activity, some work. So now a person who is not attached for the fruits of his work, anashrita karma phala karyam karma karotiyaha, he is actually sasannyasi. Not that somebody is not doing any activity, he is completely idle. Anashrita karma karoti, sasannyasi, sa yogi cha, he is also yogi, not only sannyasi, he is situated properly as yogi. And then na niragnir na chakriya, not that one who does not light fire and is not engaged in activity. So now that activities, we have to do activity, but unless we are attached to the results, there is no the driving force to perform that activity. So now we have to do activity also, but we should not be attached to the results of the work. So that there is only one solution to become proper sannyasi, that is engagement in devotional service. You do activity with your full efforts, but you offer that result to Krishna. So then we can properly engage in that particular activity. It's not that I am not feeling like working because I am not getting result. No, I am working for result, but that result I am offering to Krishna. So Krishna is best. Param Brahma, Parandhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. We should offer best thing to Krishna. So I want to offer best to Krishna, not of low quality. So I'll engage very hard, I will work very hard, and I'll put my best of my efforts, but then result I offer to Krishna. So in the process I am engaged also, but at the same time I am actually absolved of all good and bad reactions coming out of my activity. So karma, akarma, vikarma, Krishna also explains. So this is the proper way of engagement. So the ultimate goal of this Varnasrama system is to take sannyas, but in sannyas, what is exactly sannyas? Not by dress or external behavior. Of course, that if that helps in the devotional service, that is well and good. But otherwise, even if somebody is not got that, this mentality should be cultivated, at least that I should engage for Krishna's benefit. So Prabhupada also recollects his own example. He wrote a letter to Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi ji. So he was so accomplished that time that if he would have taken preaching of Bhagavad Gita, entire world would have taken it, Prabhupada says. So having that aspiration, having that hope, he wrote a letter to Gandhi. But then Gandhi never bothered to reply because he was so engrossed in politics. So Prabhupada also says in today's purport that modern politicians do not wish to retire from active life even if they are old enough. But Yudhishthira Maharaj, as an ideal king, voluntarily retired from active administrative life to prepare himself for the next life. So Prabhupada says then 15-20 years at least of the last few years we should engage completely devoting for Lord's service. So but we don't know how much time we have. So we don't know how many 15 days we are going to be alive, 15 years or 15 seconds. So nobody can say that. So that is why as early as possible, Prahlad Maharaj says, Kaumaram acharej prajno dharmam bhagavatam iha. So right from childhood, if we can continue this mentality, this sannyasa mentality, it's a mentality, it's not by externals. Even if you are engaged in your respective occupational duties, but at least if not full, some portion of your results should be offered to Krishna. By doing that, what happens? At the end of life, it becomes very easy for getting detached. Otherwise, all of a sudden, getting detachment is very, very difficult. And without detachment, there is no hope of spiritual, getting into spiritual destination. So that is what it is said. And also in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, it is said, Natasya karyam karanancha vidyate. So what is the definition of the God? Okay, only one person who can say that I don't have to work anything, I don't have to be engaged in anything is Supreme Lord. That is one of the definitions of the Lord. So one definition is, we know very famous definition by Parashara Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. Aishwaryasya Samagrasa, the person who possesses 6 opulences. Basically all the opulences, but in majorly categorized as 6, which includes almost everything. A person who possesses that in full, that is Krishna alone. So another definition is, in this Upanishad it gives, Natasya karyam karanancha vidyate. A person who does not do any work, he is actually God. Natat samasya abhyadikascha vidyate. So there is no one who is equal to him, adhika, nor anyone greater than him. Parasya shaktir vividaiva shruyate. Swabhaviki jnana bala kriyacha. So he has got unlimited energies, just by his will, just by his desire, all the jnana bala kriya is available at his extent. So that is God. And Prabhupada also actually recollects one interesting pastime. There was a very good scholar and very nice person in 1930s who had visited Calcutta. He was searching for the absolute truth, because India was known to be the motherland, the source of all these philosophies and all that. So lot of Westerners used to come and try to meet some yogis, some advanced spiritualists and all that. So this person happened to come to Calcutta, this contemporary of Prabhupada. So he was visiting all temples, and then temple deity he was noticing, and then he was recording in his diary. So he goes to one Kali temple. So there Kali Murti, she was having a chopper in her hand, and she's got a garland of heads, she has killed, she's ghastly, so he records that she's engaged in so and so. Then another place, somebody is meditating on him. So another place, somebody is doing some activity. So like this, each deity has got some activity to do. And then when he comes to, Prabhupada says, Gaudiya Math, where Radha Krishna deities were there. So he says, very nice, this is God. Because Krishna is playing flute and Radharani is there. He's enjoying, he has nothing to do, got to do with working. So he's just enjoying. So that is actually God. So Prabhupada says, this is actually Vedic conclusion. This is exactly what is mentioned in Shvetashvatara Upanishad. So that is there. And then since we are conditioned souls, we have to be engaged in different activities. Now that activity could be through pranair, through our life fully dedicated, or arthair, from our earnings, our belongings, diya and intelligence, or vacha, at least by speaking about Krishna to someone else. Somebody who's never heard of Krishna, never heard of ISKCON, never heard of Prabhupada, giving them this knowledge. So different ways actually we can serve the Supreme Lord, and by doing that, what happens? Krishna is also very, very pleased. Krishna starts reciprocating. So Krishna is not seeing that how much you are giving, how much you are offering to Krishna, because Krishna is not in need of anything. Krishna has got everything. He is the owner and master of everything. But Krishna definitely sees one thing. What does it see? Krishna sees how much we are holding to ourselves. That much he will see. Krishna doesn't see how much we are giving to Krishna, but definitely Krishna sees how much we are holding. Because the more material things we hold, that means that I don't want to hold Krishna. The lesser material things we want, like Goswamis and pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, they don't want to hold anything material. So fully Krishna has actually come. They are holding Krishna fully. And to the degree we want to hold more and more things materially, Krishna is to the same degree, he is far away from us. So Krishna never says, okay, how much, this much, he is not demanding, this much you do. Of course, one thing he demanded, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Praja. So then that also, you give up everything else, only then you can take shelter of me. That is also indicating it. So all this Varnasrama system is gradually meant to bring us to this platform of developing this attachment to Krishna, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has very nicely mentioned. Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Nyasi Kenene Ye Krishna Tattvaveta Se Guru Hoy. So it doesn't matter you are a sannyasi, you are a grahastha, you are a vanaprastha, brahmachari, whatever. But one who knows the science of Krishna, he is considered as a guru. So I am Dasa, Dasa, Dasano, Dasa. I am servant of Krishna, pure devotee. The more number of servants I become, then that is my constitutional real position. So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says that although we renounce everything, although he said you renounce all dharmas, everything, just surrender unto me. These three things he said, one should never tyajya, never reject. What are these? Yajna, dana, tapa. Yajna means sacrifices, purification, like we do japa yajna by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. So yajnanam japa yajnosmi. Krishna says among all the yajnas, this is the topmost yajna. So this should never be rejected. Yajna and then dana. Dana means because we are hardwired so much that whatever I work, I want to enjoy that completely. So now I have put in my efforts in this, achieving something, I am parting this with someone else. So that means I am sacrificing my enjoyment to some extent. That is actually sacrifices. And yajna, dana, tapa, and austerity. Now one may think that okay, I have become so elevated, I am so advanced, I don't have to do any austerities. No. So yajna, dana, tapa, the sacrifices and austerities, and then charity, sacrifice, and penances, austerities. These three things, even a great advanced soul never gives up because it purifies the soul. So there is always a danger of souls going back to the material platform. That is why it's called marginal potency. Sometimes it is in the material platform, sometimes it is in the spiritual platform. So these three things, if we actually somehow get attached, and then that will actually save us. So we will, one short thing is there. Like for example, Prabhupada also narrates this story of a king who was very much attached for material enjoyment, Yavana king, and then he makes fun of his minister who was belonging to Sanatana Dharma, and he said that no, why your kings are actually Rajarshis? When opulence is there, you have to enjoy. When power is there, you must utilize it to the full extent. Why are you not enjoying, rejecting it as false? So then he, gives this example that just like if the sword is hanging on your head, with a thin thread, any moment it may fall down. So what is the kind of enjoyment that he will be able to do? Suppose a person is eating and right above him the sword is there tied to a thin thread. So he'll not be able to relish that eating, isn't it? He'll be always concerned about how quickly I'll finish my eating and get away. So that is the consciousness. So these Rajarshis, although they fought very nicely, they were all very brave Kshatriyas, but at heart they were like Rishis. So that's where Rajarishis. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Goswamis also, they gave this message that anasaktasya vishayan yatharyan upanjatya nirbandhe krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchyate. So that is actually real vairagya, not renouncing artificially, but whatever can be utilized in Krishna's service have to be utilized in Krishna's service. So that was about thing. And last thing, the conclusion is Srimad Bhagavatam comes across such glorious examples like Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj, and later we see how Parikshit Maharaj himself, when he gets the death notice in 7 days, he renounces everything and he hands over to the next, his son Janamejaya, and then he actually focuses on completely dedicating to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is said here that unless one is free of sinful reactions, one cannot go back to Godhead. So that is why we all want to be free from all sinful reactions, isn't it? How many of you want to be free of all sinful reactions? Definitely we have done different kinds of sinful activities. So the solution is, Prabhupada is quoting in the 9th canto, the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. O Maharaj Parikshit, let me now describe the dynasty of Yadu, the eldest son of Maharaj Yayati. This description is supremely pious and it vanquishes the reactions of sinful activities in human society. Simply by hearing this description, one is freed from all sinful reactions without undergoing the different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas. One can be immediately lifted to the stage for the position of Paramahamsa. This is actually sannyasa. And Prabhupada also says, very important thing, simply by agreeing to receive this message, Shranvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantastoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Surat Satam. So just by hearing these descriptions given in Srimad Bhagavatam, one may think, why this narration about this particular king is there here? So what is so it says here, the descendants of Yadu, the activities of pure devotees, just by listening, everything, our hearts become cleansed and we will be nullified of all sinful reactions. So we will close this with one small interesting pastime, that is recollection collected by one devotee, pre-77 disciple. A few days before I took sannyas, so this devotee had taken sannyas, then after that he is recollecting. A few days before I took sannyas, a reporter was interviewing Prabhupada in his quarters in Los Angeles. This reporter knew something about Hinduism. So he said, well, isn't it old people that take sannyas in India? Why are you giving sannyas to young people? So Prabhupada got little annoyed and he shot back, what does it mean old? The man had no answer. So Prabhupada said, old means about to die. Can you say that I am older than you? Can you say that you are not going to die before me? He couldn't answer. So then finally said, therefore we give them sannyas. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Srila Prabhupada actually had different ways to drive certain things. He was very harsh on somebody, he was very soft on somebody. Sometimes somebody compared, okay, I belong to this, I am also wanting for equal rights, I belong to this, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. All that is secondary. We have to all respects, even in hands, in the fingers of our hand are not equal. So this actually distinction is required, but when it comes to spiritual Daivi Varnasrama system, even though Prabhupada recommended few sannyasis, but not that everybody should take sannyas. Everybody has got their own duties, and the sannyas is a very very subtle thing also, not only externally, that if all our activities are engaged for Krishna's satisfaction, then that is true sannyasi. So we are fortunate that Prabhupada has given all these literatures with beautiful purports. So now if all of us are chanting this Hare Krishna mantra, following sincerely his instructions, trying to follow, even the attempt to follow, and reading books and distributing books, engaging in practical devotional service, and then our life will be successful. And Prabhupada says we can go back to home, back to Godhead in this very life itself.
Sometimes COVID is happening, sometimes beside me for any time, we do not know when it will fall, where it will fall. So how do we know for us to retire time, and whether it is possible to retire time, because now all economics, now pension is stopped. Earlier people were getting pension after retire. Now there is no pension, no concept of like that. So in Kali Yuga, when do we know how to retire better?
Yeah, so the question here is, in Kali Yuga, how to know when to retire, how to retire timely basically. So that's why Kali Yuga, it is said that Shubhastu Shigram, whatever that auspicious activity is there, you should do it immediately, as early as possible. So retiring means, okay, if somebody has got opportunity to retire and dedicate his life for Prabhupada's mission, Krishna's mission, that is fine. But if that is not possible, that is why it is said pranair arthair dhiya vacha. You stane sthita shrutigatam tanuvan manobir. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you remain in whatever field you are there, but you develop this internal attachment. You should be able to differentiate that what is primary and what is secondary. So till death I'll work, that should not be our primary. What is primary now has become secondary, what is secondary has become primary. So this primary and secondary have to be again interchanged. And then pray to Krishna sincerely, how nicely I can engage more and more in Krishna's service, Prabhupada's pure devotee service. Then naturally he makes the situation possible, favorable. So that is the thing. Okay, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.